Alright guys, so it's been about a week since I last messed with this HKS system, and let me tell you, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, this thing has whooped my ass royally. Like, definitely the most difficult install I have ever done to date. And it's really not even because it is a super difficult install, but because it was a learning process. And on top of that, I had a whole bunch of issues with different things. For one, I didn't have the tools for the C-clamp, so I had to go out and get one of these things. Forget what it's called, but it has like these little tips on the front. There you go. You see that? Yeah, so you're gonna need that for the C-clamp. And putting this C-clamp on here, guys, whew, that in itself is a battle. What happened originally was that I put the C-clamp on the blow-off valve, and apparently it didn't seat all the way down, and that in itself was a task because the one that was provided, I don't know what was up with it, maybe it was just the wrong size or something, I don't know what happened, but it would not seat properly at all. I even shaved it down, sanded it, did a lot of things to get it to seat, and it still just wouldn't go down. So as you see in here, I'll show you guys in a bit, it has to seat inside of this little black ring in there, and if it doesn't seat properly, the blow-off valve will detach from that, and that's what actually happened while I was test driving the blow-off valve. The C-clamp popped off. Luckily, nothing broke or flew off, unfortunately. The only thing I lost was the C-clamp. It just disappeared. I don't know if it got lost on the street or if it just snapped into a bazillion pieces. Not sure. But I had to order another one, so that took about another week and a half to almost 2 weeks to get in, and I had to order that from, I think it was exoticspeed.com. I'll link it in the description, but my God, guys, it was a huge pain, just mass pain in the ass. Not even to, you know, bring up the charge pipe installation, which in itself it's a pain. You have to take off your intake, the battery. I took off the turbo inlet because it allowed my fat ass hands to kind of get in there a little bit better. You do have to remove the diverter valve to do the block on the HKS, which I'll show you that right here. This is the block for the blow-off valve. So this is gonna block off your diverter valve so all the pressure can be routed to the blow-off valve. And to be honest with you, I'm just gonna tell you right now, it's probably gonna sound amazing, probably gonna be outstanding, but for the price of like $400 and something, and then how long it's taken, all the complications, and just everything I've had to go through, I don't think I would do it again, to be honest. I would probably just buy another forged blow-off valve because it sounded great and it was super easy, took 10 minutes to install. This one, if with no issues, would still take me probably like 4 to 6 hours from beginning to end. Yeah, I mean, if you're a mechanic and you have tools that are readily available and you have the knowledge and you're familiar with this car, then yeah, it might be a lot quicker for you. But for me, and probably most of you guys out there, yikes, like, whew, that was not easy. Not easy at all. But now that I'm a little more familiar, I'm gonna attempt the whole install again, except for the charge pipes. I'm leaving that shit on there. Fuck that. I'm gonna take off the integrated engineering intake, then the diverter valve so I can block it off. And now I'm gonna try running the HKS blow-off valve again, because the new C-clamp I got from Exotic Speed actually sat perfectly. As soon as I put it in there, it just fit. So I don't know if there's different manufacturers or what's up with that, but the one I got with the Spulen kit did not fit. Just did not fit. Hey, what can you do? All right, so we've gotten the intake removed now. That's out right here. As you can see, look at that nice velocity stack. Check that out, guys. Boom, that is so nice. Thing is huge. So pretty much what we're gonna do now is go ahead and remove this little hosing right here that you'll see right in between the two charge pipes. So once we remove this, we can actually replace that one with the one that's attached to the HKS blow-off valve. So this is gonna go in here, something like that right there. And that'll allow us to also access the diverter valve, which this is why I like the Spulen turbo outlet, guys, because this thing can be removed easily. I just remove this clamp and this can pop right off. So I don't have to actually remove the whole turbo outlet to get my diverter valve out of the way. You know, just a lot easier for accessing everything in this area. All right, so as you can see, we now have the clamps off. We can go ahead and just slide these down a bit. Go ahead and pop that off right there. It's gonna take a bit of fidgeting to get it on there, but once you get it on there, you just gotta make sure this line right here clears some of your wiring and make sure everything is angled correctly. I like to put the clamps in a way that you can get to them in future. So I got one here and one here. So So now we're gonna go ahead and remove this piece of the Spulen turbo outlet, or turbo inlet, so that we can remove the diverter valve. So I took out the battery for a second just so I could have some more room to work with. I always like to take out the battery no matter what I'm doing in here, just because it gives my arms more room, and for tools with extensions, a lot easier access to the diverter valve, the turbo inlet pipe, the outlet pipes, whatever it may be. It's just always easier to work with the battery out, in my opinion. So now that everything's out of the way, we can take our screwdriver with our T30 and go ahead and remove the 3 bolts that are on there. So what I found helps me is that when I'm taking out the diverter valve, I be sure to take each bolt out slowly so I don't drop anything into the engine bay, and then I don't actually take any of the bolts out of the diverter valve. I just loosen it to the point where they're not connected to the actual turbo anymore, and then lift it all out together at once. And now that the diverter valve's out, we can go ahead and take our block, insert it into the area where the diverter valve meets the turbo. That'll block off the air from there, and then we can go ahead and rig up the HKS so we can get some awesome turbo noises. Okay, awesome. So the block is now on. All we have to do is hook it back up. There we go. And then we're gonna use this right here as a vacuum for the blow-off valve. So we're gonna go ahead and take this hosing that we had on the blow-off valve, and they supplied a little T-shaped valve right here. So what we're gonna do is remove this and then use this hosing right here in place of it. And then run this piece on the other side. So if you notice, this hosing is actually a bit long. I don't want it touching these charge pipes right here because these can get kind of hot and I don't want this to melt. So what I'm gonna do is I actually bought a little mini tubing cutter from ECS Tuning. I'm gonna go ahead and cut these down to size and also make sure everything that I cut is straight, because I don't wanna have any other issues or further complications, because this has already been one hell of an install. So after giving it a try, I probably should have read this earlier, but it says that it only cuts up to 5/8. This doesn't work for this thick of a line. It kind of just left a little imprint on it, but didn't actually cut anything, so. Yeah, that didn't work too well, so I'm just gonna use some scissors and hope for the best. So I use the scissors and I cut the line down to size, so everything seems to be fine now. Got some pretty good clearance in here from the charge pipes, and it still has enough slack to where it's not gonna, you know, happen, anything major is gonna happen. So now all that's really left is to go ahead and reinstall the turbo inlet and the intake, and then give it a spin. So as you can see right here, this is the HKS, and it actually fits barely just snugly with the intake. So when looking at intakes, that is something you also want to look at when installing or buying something like the HKS, because if you have something like an APR intake with a catch can, it's probably not going to fit. And that's one thing I'm going to have to check out when I put the APR back on for the review or the comparison, is it going to fit with the HKS, because it's super tight right now with the IE intake. And that one has a silicone hose, so it's okay if it kind of touches or rubs up against it. With a carbon fiber, I don't know if I'd be too comfortable with that. So all that's left now is to start her up and see what it sounds like.